Hey guys, Joe here. This is supposed to go for the next 45 minutes, but honestly, I just realized, well, a few minutes ago, I realized I forgot my coffee. And I'm like dying of thirst already. If no one comes on here, the topic for tonight is going to be the 4 things that you need to do in your business in order to be successful. I see a lot of posts all the time that like businesses running a business so hard and the stress and blah, 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 and the missed events and like you name it. And I talked about in other videos. It's like, yeah, if you're doing it the wrong way, right? It's the same as if like when we first started, I'm from fence industry. When we first started out, like the way I was doing business, it was really, really difficult. The way to get jobs and everything else, like it just didn't make sense how I was doing it compared to like what we're doing now. For the people that just showed up, if there's something you want me to talk about, if not, we're doing the 4 things that business owners need to do in order to be successful and just have an easier to run business and work less hours and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to get more leads. It's what everyone, like whenever I talk to any contractor, that's the number one thing. Like, hey, I need more leads because I need to book more jobs so I can make more money, which is understandable. So with that, it's easy. I think that's my strongest point is how to get leads. And pretty much that, and I've talked about it in a lot of other videos, but Google My Business, number 1 by far, which it's now Google Business Profile, number 1 by far. The reason for that is it gives you the right off the bat, it gives you the authority, right? So, and what I mean by that is if you actually go and search for fence company near me, plumber near me, whatever it is near me, typically what you're going to end up doing, or most people, and there's 3 sections on the page for Google that you're going to be looking at. The first section, the very top, is going to be Google Ads. Some people look at that stuff. If it catches their eye, then they might click on something. If it doesn't catch their eye, then the next section is going to be the Google My Business section. So that shows where the plumbers, the fencers, like whatever you're looking for near them, right? And along with that, it has the reviews. So what ends up happening is people are more likely to trust you at least a little bit more than they would if they didn't know anything about you, right? So that's where it's really important. And this is honestly where we get a majority, probably like 70% of our leads. And at this point, like we put a lot of work into it up front. But now it's basically just maintaining the progress that we have made. So it's pretty simple. Along with that is like, you don't have to pay a lot, right? So if you do it on your own, there's different things you can do in order to rank higher quicker. That's doing things, and I've talked about in other videos, and I'll put the links in the description after this video is done, either tonight or tomorrow. It's probably going to be tomorrow. But I show you like things like geotagging your images, right? Keywording your images. Those are some of the major ones. And the other thing is like your reviews. You have to get more and more reviews. The more reviews you have, the more Google's most likely going to show you. The more often that you're getting these reviews, the same thing. If everything's about consistency, right? Whether it's with working out, your business, advertising, everything's about consistency. So if you're consistently getting more and more reviews, then you're going to show up more often, right? So that's what's important. The other thing is like the business post, and then just making sure, like I posted the video, like it's make sure whatever, if at all possible, whatever your business is, like make sure you have fence company in there if you're a fence company, because that's what people are searching for, right? At the end of the day, everything's about finding out what people are looking for or what people want and give it to them, right? I talked about a quote from Zig Ziglar. Basically, you can get anything that you want in life, as long as you help other people get what they want. I don't know if that's it verbatim, but more or less, right? So it's always about giving first and then you get in return. So anyway, you do that. I'll post a video, but like that's the main thing. Next thing is Google Ads. Like I'm not huge into social media. Like we're posting more and more from that, but we'll be doing some other things. But like Google Ads, I feel is probably the next best investment. The reason for that, and I guess going back to the Google My Business, the other thing that makes it so powerful is that you're not paying each and every time. You know, if you do it on your own, you can do it for like literally like almost nothing, like $200 a year. That's about it. If you are going to handle the citations and stuff on your own. If you're going to get me to do it, it's going to be more expensive. At this point, it's $1,500 a month. Honestly, the package after a few people, and I can show the results and everything else, that it's going to go higher, just because it's worth it. And what we're doing is, between the Google My Business and the SEO on your website, what we're offering, it's not going to be able to be touched. I don't care who else is doing it. They're just not going to top the results. So there's that. But the nice thing with that is, like, you're going to be paying $1,500 for the contracts, or the minimum commitment is 12 months. That takes everything to get really the ball rolling and get most of the results that you're looking for, depending on the industry that you're in. So if you're in HVAC or something like that, you'll probably be doing this for 2 to 3 years. But as a fence company, typically a year, maybe 18 months, and then you're pretty much good to go. After that, you have to maintain it if you don't want us to. And that's basically, at that point, like, what we're going to end up doing, it doesn't even make sense for you to pay me, honestly. But some people just don't want to do it. That's where just making sure you're doing images and posts and like that kind of thing. Nothing major. At that point, you can just basically hand it off to someone else and they can easily take care of it. Either that, or maybe we'll just start a maintenance plan or something like that. The next thing, so after that, like, you're done, right? So you only have to pay for it once, for that year, 18 months, if you're in the fencing, the decks, like that kind of industry. And after that, you're done, right? It's not like Google ads or Facebook ads or any of that kind of stuff where you're paying every single time someone clicks. Like, this is an investment, for, again, a year, 18 months, something like that. And it keeps on rewarding you time after time and after time. It's kind of like getting into these, stocks with dividends and stuff like that. Basically about once, and you're constantly reaping the rewards from it. So there's that. Google ads. The reason why I like Google ads above Facebook ads or anything like that is because, like, and I've talked about other videos, like, you just need, what you're doing is you're looking for people that want your service, right? If you're in something like fencing, decks, like that kind, not so much decks, but fencing, especially, it's more, it's not for fun, right? It's not a pool. It's not stuff like that. So, like, people are only looking to get a fence, like, when something happens, like they moved into a house without a fence, or they moved in a house where they don't like the fence, or they need to get a fence for a pool, or they just got a dog, or they have kids now, or something like that, or the fence is falling down, right? So they're not looking around constantly for fences. But when they are ready to go, they'll be typing in fence company near me. And that's when you show up on Google, right? So that's between the Google My Business, SEO, and then your Google ads, right? Whereas when you're dealing with Facebook, it's a little bit different of a situation, because people aren't going there to look for a fence company typically, right? They're just going there to scroll and click and just waste some time. So the vast majority of people are not going to be qualified, that either don't want, or they're not qualified for what you are selling. So that's why I prefer Google ads personally. There's other people that do very well on Google or on Facebook. It's something that we'll be getting into. We'll be doing like lives and that kind of thing. Just taking the approach from like Joe Everest. So that's probably going to be starting this week that we're in. So there's that. The next thing you have to get really good at is selling the jobs, right? So we used to go to all these jobs, basically go to every single quote, and we weren't even good at sales to begin with, right? Never have been, because I never focused on it. I always had some head trash. So basically I was like, I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson. I'm not going to learn how to do sales. I'm just going to learn how to get more leads. And that's why I focused on for 5 years, and like, we got really good at it, right? So and because of that, our closing rate's extremely, extremely low. Whether we go out to the person's house, whether we sell on the phone, like, it just sucks in general. So that's why I hired someone to help us with that. But in my opinion, that's worked well not well, like really, really well is, like I said, we used to go out to quotes all the time, right? And because the amount of leads, like I was doing 60 and 70 quotes a week. And so, but we were only booking like, 8, 10 of the jobs, like nothing, right? So, what's that, 15%, something like that. So yeah, if we go to 60, 70, 15, yeah, something like that. So what we do now is we give them Ballparks over the phone. As a fence company, it's very easy. We basically use a GPS program, we draw it out, and use our programs, which there'll be a link to the document as well. I'm kind of refining it a little bit. There's a document I'll put in the description afterwards, but basically it has all like the tools and different areas that you can go to. It's just a little thing that it's helpful, really helpful. But there's like a GPS tool, there's a fence calculator tool, there's a survey tool, like there's all different tools that basically allow you to get measurements from your office, right? So then you give them ballpark over the phone, and then if they're looking to move forward, then we charge $75 or $150 to go out depending on their distance. And that works really well to get rid of tire kickers. I see posts all the time on Facebook like, yeah, I wouldn't do it because you're going to lose jobs because of it. Yeah, you are. Just point blank. You are going to lose jobs because of it. But you're also going to lose a lot of tire kickers, right? So we used to go out to 60 to 70 quotes a week. So imagine if we could knock out one an hour. Okay. Between drive time, being at the customer's house and everything else, an hour. And that's what we would schedule. And it was a friggin', like when I used to have to do the quotes, it was it was like stressful because like I literally for like 10 hours, I was going to 10 quotes, right? So then I have to drive all the time. And plus, if they didn't schedule it correctly, then it's like half hour, 45 minutes away. And then I got like 15 minutes, to talk to the people, and I'm still running late, right? And when I hired someone else to do that for me, well, that's great that I didn't have to do it myself. But now I'm paying someone literally like 60 hours a week, so 20 hours overtime plus the gas and everything else to drive to all these friggin' people's house. Like we spent a shit ton of money. Now we just have the salespeople in the office. They don't have to go anywhere, and like makes things easier. So that's what we do. Me personally, I think it works really well. As far as improving the sales percent, what we're doing this year, and we've seen a big difference. So just in January alone, so our sales were actually lower than they were last year, but the call volume was actually like literally like half of what it was last year. But with that being said, our consultation rates, right? So the percentage of people that actually book a consultation this year was like 15.5% for qualified leads, whereas last year was like 5.5%. So we're like, or no, 16.5. We were like literally 3 times higher. Now, why were we 3 times higher? One, because we had more of a process, right? So I hired the salesperson, our sales trainer to help us out. And I'm very not patient whatsoever. And so what ended up happening is like I don't see the like huge improvement day to day. Like I even was catching myself doing this shit today to myself, and I'm like, it's not getting anything done, and we need more progress, and blah blah blah. But then when I look at a report and our consultation rate is 3 times higher, like something's obviously going right. Right. So what are we doing differently? Number one is the process, right? So we're following the same process with every single customer. The other thing that we're doing is that we are actually following up with these people. Like, imagine that. Like, we never followed up with anyone. Basically, I spent all this money and all this time and effort to get these leads come in. And then basically I would, if we didn't sell the job, like we never followed up with them, right? I counted on autoresponders and stuff like that, which they do work well, but there's got to be a human's touch side of things as well, in my opinion. So we're getting back into the automations and whatnot, but we're going to be more strategic about them. Basically with Mysalesman, if you're a fence company, the way we're doing it is, and I don't like Mysalesman for a particular reason, and we're about to solve this anyway, is that people get their prices. Now, I know this sounds ass backwards, especially like that's the whole point of Mysalesman is to like weed out these tire kickers. But as one of, if not the highest price company in the area, if people just go on our website to go to Mysalesman and get a price for $10,000, but they didn't talk to anyone, right? So they're not committed to us, like they're not tied to us for any type of reason. We have not showed any kind of value, right? At all. Then what do you think they're going to do? They're going to call other people. And then, so if I'm $10,000 and they call these other people and it's $8,000, well, guess who they're going with because we haven't physically talked to them. They're going with the $8,000 company, even if our reviews are better. We just dealt with this shit today where like there's a well-known company. They've been around for like 20 years at this point, and we put out a price for like 4,600, and they're putting out a price for, and it's a small ass shop, 4,600, and they're charging 35. Like, what the fuck? Like, how you can't tell me, and Mysalesman's a good tool in some ways, but you cannot tell me that you are not losing jobs from using Mysalesman. So what are we doing differently? And no offense to the Mysalesman people, because you're like, I'll post this on the Facebook group, but what we're doing differently is I have a GPS tool. Again, it's in the description. We're basically, and I have a different link because I have another GPS tool without our logo on there, because I know you guys don't want my logo on there. And my logo, I mean like Deptford Fence logo. So what we're doing instead is the GPS program. They're actually going to draw out the thing on their map. They are going to basically hit the download button. As soon as they hit the download button, they literally go to my contact page where they fill out a form, upload that drawing, and we're going to get that way. What that's going to do is it's going to weed out the people that aren't serious, right? If they were serious about getting a, and we'll give them the options to call and all that kind of shit. But for the people that don't want to talk to anyone, they just want to get their pricing. What we're going to do, ads will be specifically tied around like draw your fence, get your price, right? Perfect. I think that'll even work. Draw your price. Yeah. That character wise, you're good for Google ads, stuff like that. So what's going to happen with that is the people that aren't really serious about getting a fence, and so people that don't want to talk to anyone, right? So that's the type of person all themselves. But then there's two types of people within there that as well. So the people that aren't really invested in their fence, so they're not willing to spend a few minutes to do it. And there's people that are invested in getting a fence, so they will do it, right? So what's going to happen is one, they're going to get the measurement, so we know what that is. So people that call us and we have to play charades and shit to figure out what the hell's going on, well, we're not doing that anymore. Like, you're going to draw your fence first, and then we're going to talk to you, right? Especially in the peak season. Like, I literally will not talk to a single person until they draw up their fence for me, because there's so much back and forth. Like, it takes like 5 minutes to figure out where they want their fence anyway, right? And then when you think where they want it, because like customers, I don't know if you notice, like they say the weirdest shit, like, oh, I want this fence. Like, I, I don't even talk to them anymore. But like, you'll get off the phone, you're like, what the fuck were you talking about, right? So, and I apologize for the language, but so, and then you're like, okay, I kind of think I know what you're talking about. Let me send this to you, make sure it's right. And then you send it to them and like, no, that's not right. It's supposed to be here. And, you know, back and forth, back and forth. The next thing you know, it took 20 minutes when I could have talked, like they could have talked to another person, right? We could have sold another job, right? So, anyway, so they'll do the GPS drawing. Then they basically hit the download button. It sends them to the contact form, and then they will put in the information that we want them to have, as far as like, you know, whatever we want them to have. We're working up that right now. And then after that, then they send it. Then we will talk to them. And then basically after they fill out the form and submit it, then they will basically go to a page where it says, hey, do you want to talk right now? Or do you want to schedule a time to talk right now? Right. And then at that point we can, you know, talk to them. We have the drawing in hand. Then all we have to do is focus on selling the job. So that's what we're doing. Right. And I think with that, it's going to do a really, really good job. The other thing that you can do with Mysalesman is basically, and I didn't watch the video yet from Dan Blanc. They did a live on this as well with their automations and shit. So I don't know what they're doing because I haven't watched it yet. But basically for now, what we do is all the Mysalesman people that come in, they basically go into a Google spreadsheet, and then from there they get auto text that gets sent out that says, hey, so that used my, you know, our online price tool. Are you interested in discussing your project and getting a more accurate price, right? So then we'll send that. After 2 days, if they still haven't responded, then, and by responded, right? So my system can actually figure out if I don't know what Dan's can do at this point with oh my god, I used to use the Pronto, whatever, the CRM that he uses, Job Nimbus. So whether it'll be able to detect if they either called us, emailed us, or did a text message, right? So if we haven't heard any kind of response at that point, then after 2 days, it'll do another thing. No, another text. And then after 3 more days of no conversation whatsoever, It'll be like, hey, it just looks like you're no longer interested. Reach out if you ever need help, right? That kind of thing. So we're doing that. So that's our whole sales process, right? And then the next thing is producing the jobs. Now, especially because I'm going to post this in the Facebook group for fencing guys after the fact, but I might get some flack for this, but my opinion, and this will ruffle feathers, that you cannot run a business while you're digging holes. So now, why do I think that? Because you're not a business. You're a contractor. I talked about this. I started a TikTok too, but I kind of talked about this earlier. But like, in my opinion, your entire livelihood, and depending how your business is set up. So you might be still installing the fences, but you have someone in the office. You might have like spouse in the office or whatever it may be. I don't know how your setup is, but basically if it's more than just you, right? That is there. So you have yourself and a helper installing, and then you got someone in the office and maybe someone doing quotes or something. I don't know. But if you are installing, like, you are like a huge risk for your company, right? So think about and this idea came from, like, I was just watching the Keanu Reeves story where he was talking about basically, obviously when he is doing a movie, like, they have in their contracts that, like, he can't basically do, like, there's like a no crazy shit clause, right? Like, don't be riding your motorcycle, don't be doing this, don't be doing that, right? No skydiving, right? Because if you die, like, there's no movie. Okay. It's the same thing for your business. If you're still installing what you sell, if your business literally cannot run without you, like, you don't have a business, right? You have a glorified job that has a lot of liabilities and risk involved, right? And I just scratch my head a lot of times reading this stuff, and because, like, you're putting everyone at risk by installing what you sell, like, point blank. Like, you cannot install a fence, and because, like, what happens, people that get COVID, you're down for 2 weeks, right? Or you're supposed to be down for 2 weeks, or whatever it happens to be at this point. What can you do in your business, right? Can't install, like, your business at a standstill, right? What happens if you get injured, right? My hand screwed up, like, I'm going to MRIs and everything else because I got injured surfing, right? If I was still installing, like, my business would be screwed. I'd be really, really stressed out and everything else, considering that, like, it's the winter time, but, like, we're only a few weeks into spring, and, like, I couldn't install. Like, there's no way I can install, right? So I'm a risk to my business if you guys, if my family or my employees are counting on me to install that fence, right? So you need to get away from it as soon as possible, as soon as you can. Even if you still want to install, like, if you can't get away from it for whatever reason, then at least get subcontractors, right? So at least with subcontractors, and you can do employees. This doesn't go any lower. You can do employees, but the part of that is typically, especially when you're starting out, you're wearing like 17 different hats, right? You have to answer the phone calls, you have to do the emails, you have to go out to the estimates, you have to actually do the estimate, you have to go install the fence, you have to do all this shit, right? Well, do you really have time to train employees on top of it? No, you just don't have time for it. So that's why you skip all that and you just hire a subcontractor, right? I am so fortunate that Dave Wolf down in Florida, after talking to him several times, he's like, all my issues from like 2 years ago is like, why don't you hire a sub? Because we were like 16, 18 weeks back out, and I'm like, I'm stressed out. The guys aren't getting anything done. I'm busy doing this, and like, they're just not doing what they're supposed to. And then he's like, just hire someone. I'm like, no, it's another company hiring basically another company. I don't have any quality control, and they might steal my work and blah, blah, blah. He's like, dude, just hire someone. I'm like, no. So a few weeks go by, and he's like, how are you making out? I'm like, still doing really friggin' shitty. And he's like, just hire sub. So then he finally convinced me. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll just post and just to shut him up, right? So I post, and it's literally been the best decision I've ever made in my life. Point blank. For the business, point blank. Why? Because the employees are a pain in the ass. Like, yes, you can build a culture, but I'm not Shawn King. I'm just not. I'm never going to be. I don't think I ever want to be that invested, for me personally. It's nothing against him. Like, he's an awesome, awesome individual that's really like bringing the fence industry to a whole new standard. But I'm not that guy. I'm just not. And I don't want to be. Like, the whole point of me building this business is so I can make a lot of money, so I can go to Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Florida, wherever the hell I feel like it, so I don't have to work anymore. Like, that's the point of my business. Not to feel proud about the fences we install. It's not about that. Yes, I want to be a good human being, and yes, I want to do good work for my customers and everything else. But no, I am not going to take 50,000 pictures of a fence and like stare at it and just be like proud of it. I'm just not. It's just not me. So that's why, that's why I can't have the employees at this point. Plus, especially in the beginning, like I said, you don't have the time to do that. So you hire subs instead. So are you afraid of them stealing your business? You are going to be. Are you going to be afraid that they're not doing the same qualities? Yes. But just realize that your employees have the same issues, right? They could steal your business, right? They can go behind your back and basically be like, "Hey, Mrs. Smith, I know you. I know you thought I did a really good job. If you know have any friends or family that want the work done, like how I actually work, blah blah blah. Like, here's my card." They could easily do that. When you're not there, do you know what the quality is going to be like? No. And that's the other thing. You have to realize that you are not the sole determiner of the quality of the work that's put out. You're not. The customers. As long as, I'm not saying the fence should be built like shit. I'm not saying that. If that's what you sell, most people that listen to me are fence people. So that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as long as the fence is going to hold up, right? It's not going to fall down. They didn't set it like shit. They're attaching the pickets probably and everything else. They don't care about the little things. They just don't. They just don't want their fence to, fall down. They don't want their kids to go get hurt, the dogs to get out. They don't want to spend extra time from work and everything else because they're dealing with a shitty contractor. They just want someone that communicates, shows up when they're supposed to, and puts the friggin' fence in or whatever you happen to sell. That's what they're looking for. Point blank. That's all they're looking for. They don't care how many ties were used. They don't care like shit's pointing in the right direction. They don't care. They don't care. At least in my area, they don't care. But I'm pretty sure most areas they don't give a shit. They just don't. Unless they're like an architect. If they're an architect, like, first of all, just run or like jack up their price like 25%, just because like they're gonna be a huge pain in the ass and they will stare at that shit from like 6 inches away. Guaranteed. So anyway, that's why, me personally, you hire a subcontractor. The other reason is like they're better quality than the employee. Why? Because they have to be, right? They're not tied to you. Like, you guys aren't married to each other, right? There's nothing holding you guys and tying you together. It's not like if they get let go that they can get unemployment and stuff like that. No, if they don't work, they don't eat, right? So they have to work. And because they're not tied to you, they can't do shitty work. They have to communicate and shit like that. Otherwise, you will not use them anymore. And then they have to find someone else to do work for. But they just want consistency. They are basically employees that want to get paid more. Okay. They want a little bit more responsibility, but they don't want all the responsibility, in my opinion. Right. So, how do you find employees, or how do you find subs? I use Facebook, right? Some people use Indeed and stuff like that. But I've had really good luck with Facebook personally, like, because I post the ad. Personally, what I do is find out what people are paying in the area. And then I'm like, if, my area, it's like $30-$35 a post. And then I'm like, hey, I need installers, paying $40 a post. I just pay more, right? And people magically apply. And, there's been a lot of decent ones, but at least with Facebook, you can go through the profile and basically stalk them and see what's going on. Me personally. So, and then you kind of see what kind of person they are. Because at the end of the day, like, you're really looking for a person's character, right? Obviously, they can't install like shit, but like, what's more important, at least to me, is like the character of the person. Like, I want to be associated with good people, right? So I've had good luck with that, right? So, that's number 3. The listing is knowing your numbers. Okay. So there are a ton of different, there's a few ways of doing your pricing, right? A lot of people talk about hitting gross profit. Like if you're listening to Contractor Flight, stuff like that, it's 50% gross profit. Like that's what they talk about. Now, as fence companies, and I love the Contractor Flight. I found a ton of value. I did a podcast with them, but it's not happening for fence people for the most part. And I've talked about this, I think, in the last live. But you're not going to get there. But at least if you want to shoot for a number, shoot like for 40%, right? Or whatever your number happens to be. You can do margin. I don't subscribe to margin either. I think about it differently than most other people. I think margin and gross profit are for people that have an established business, right? That already have a handle on their numbers. They know what they need to hit and all that kind of stuff. That's me. That's how I feel, right? But for a lot of people that are just starting out and don't really know their numbers, because that's the other thing. I talk to pretty much every person I talk to does not know their numbers. They just don't. And I'm not talking about like having a CPA license and all this other shit. No, like just having a basic understanding what your numbers is. So I did a spreadsheet and I did a video about this, how to do your numbers. But the way my mind works is that we're factories, right? Especially with fence companies, we're just putting in a job, basically it's not like we're there for 6 months. We're not there for a year. We're not building a house. We're just putting in a fence. We're in there between 1 and like 3 days. Like that's it, right? So for me, it's all about figuring out like what you need to make per year and then working backwards from that. So again, it's in the spreadsheet. I'll put links in the description and stuff like that afterwards. But what you do is you put in how much you need to make for your business, how much you need to make for yourself, right? Once you get the numbers, then you're breaking down a little bit further of how many working days per year are you working, right? So we work all year long. I factor in 4 days of work, 4 days a week. So that's 208 days a year. So basically, if I need $208,000 to make it for the year, then basically I need to make $1,000 for every day I work. Like it's that simple. And then that's if I'm running one crew, right? If I'm running 2 crews, then I basically only need to make $500 per crew per day. Like it's that simple to think about, right? So from there, what you do is you start putting in a spreadsheet of, you put in the materials, how much the total price is, how much the materials, how much the labor, and how many number of days that you think it's going to take, right? So there's 2 sides of the column. There's a projected versus the actual. So you project that it's going to take, it's a $10,000 job. It's $3,000 in materials and $2,000 in labor. So basically you have a gross profit of just say $5,000. You think it's going to take 2 days. So it's $2,500 per day. Well, if the spreadsheet tells you you're supposed to hit $2,800 per day, well, then you didn't charge enough for the job, right? So then you have to adjust your pricing so that way you're at least making $2,800 per day, right? So that's the first column. As long as you hit all those numbers, it'll turn green, and then green is go, so you know to send that quote to the customer. If it is red, then you do not send the quote. You adjust your numbers first and then send it to the customer, because otherwise you are losing money. Because again, this spreadsheet will tell you that based upon your expenses and the amount of days that you're working, you have to make X amount per day, right? Just how my mind works. It's not for everyone, but it's how it works for me. So you do that. So as long as it's green, you send it. If it's red, adjust the price, then send it again. Okay. Then after you're done that and you actually do the job, then you go into the actual column, right? So that's where you put in the actual number of days, the actual total price, the actual materials, the actual labor, right? And what this thing does, and it's not sophisticated, but basically, if you projected it to be 2 days and it's really 3, it's going to turn red for you, okay? Why? Because like people can just understand colors. Like green is good, red is bad, right? So if you see red, like you screwed up somewhere. So if you thought it'd take 2 days and it took 3 days instead, it's going to turn red. If you thought the materials were going to be 5,000, but really they were 5,500 because you didn't account for like COVID prices and everything else, because the prices keep on going up every few weeks, well, then it's going to turn red on you. If the labor, and that's usually tied in with the number of days that for the install. But if you thought it was going to be $1,000 in labor because it's going to be 2 days, but now it's 3 days, so it turned into $1,500 in labor, well, then it's going to show you there. And then what you can easily see is in that column that wherever the red is, and if it's consistently in, once you put in like 10, 15 jobs, what you're going to start seeing is that if you're always red in the number of days column, well, then you're not projecting the right amount of days. So instead of, if you think it's like, oh, it's probably gonna be 2, like if everything's perfect and the sun's shining and I don't hit roots or anything else, Well, it's not happening, right? It's not every day's perfect. So what you have to do, instead of projecting 2, if you think it's going to be 2, just add an extra day. Like, that's all you have to do. And then when you do that on the projected column, like, then it's going to show that you're not making enough per day. So then you have to raise your prices, right? Because again, it's all about making enough per day in order to hit your number for the year. Okay. So if you see in the other column, like, that your prices are constantly, whatever you thought it was going to be 5,000, but it turned into 5,500. So if you see a ton of red in the material column, then that means you're not projecting properly. So what do you do about it? What we personally do is, whatever the supplier's pricing is right now, we add 5% to it. Why do we do that? Because we know in 4 to 6 weeks, they're going to raise their prices like 5%. So as long as that happens, then what'll end up happening is, their price goes up, and then we pay what we actually, what we projected anyway. Now, if there wasn't a price increase, then it's basically an extra bonus. Wouldn't you rather know at the end of the job you made an extra $300 and you're like, shit, I found like $300 in my pocket? It's like that, right? And then next time the price increases come out, whatever that number is, I add 5% to that again. You have to do that, especially now, because the prices keep on going up all the time. Before, the prices would go up, like, you always had that springtime, like I always called it the COLA, like cost of living adjustment for the old people. Like, you'd always see it in the springtime. You'd see like 3-5%. Well, no, now it's like friggin' 3% in March, then 3% in May, and then June and July and August. And then basically they're just trying to screw you as much as you can. Like, I know they're screwing us at this point, but it is what it is. But as long as you, project for that, everything's good. Does that make sense? Like, people are on here. Like, if you want to talk, that's fine. I only got like 5 minutes left and my son's going to be done. So I'll have to be heading out. But, that's what I personally think. And the other thing is that we also have to realize, and I do this a lot to myself, is like, when it comes to sales, right? I always would say to myself, like, I'm either good or not good at sales, right? Like, it's either a yes or no question. But it's not that, right? So you got to take stock of everything if you end up watching this video from the start, right? So you look at, how are you at doing, getting leads? From a 1 to 10, give yourself a grade, right? And then if you're at like a 2, it's like, okay, what small tweaks can I do to get to like a 3 and a 4 or a 5, something like that. It's not like you have to go from no leads to getting 50 leads a day like we can get. Like, you just got to like get a little bit better every single day. Same thing for selling the jobs. That's what I have to realize for myself. And I get pissed off all the time at my sales trainer, even though like we've seen drastic improvements, not all in one day, but it's like these little fine adjustments, like 1%. I'm a huge fan of Atomic Habits. If you have not read that book, I would highly suggest reading it, because again, 1% better every day for a year is like 37 times better just by these slight improvements. It's kind of like walking up, rungs of a ladder, right? Just one foot after the next. The next thing you know, like, your story's above, where you started. So you just got to get a little better and better. And again, producing the jobs, right? Number one thing that has to be done if you're still installing what you sell is you have to spend time every week on trying to find someone else to replace you, because again, you are a huge liability to yourself, to your family, and to any of your employees that you have if you are the one installing what you sell. Because if your business cannot run without you, you're a risk. And just like the Keanu Reeves story and stuff like that, you cannot run a business like that. And knowing your numbers, it's very simple. In the spreadsheet I have, it's like week 1 through 5. It's very simple what you can do. It's not that hard. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. My son's coming in now, so I will talk to you next week or whenever. Oh, follow me on TikTok. I just started that. I really like the whole setup. So have a good one. See ya.